Welcome to Control Room Conversations, a podcast that goes behind the scenes of live events to meet the people who make them happen. Welcome to Control Room Conversations. This is Madeleine Falk. She's a wonderful person. Always happy to see her in a control room every time. She's lovely to be around. She does a great job, but she also works on the other side of the camera as an actress and a stilt walker and a few other things, I'm sure. Madeleine, could you introduce yourself to everyone?
Yes, I think you kind of covered it. Madeleine Falk. I'm originally from Sweden. I guess I could say that. I grew up on a farm in Sweden, but by way of being a dancer, I made my way over to Los Angeles, and I loved it here. I met my husband, and I ended up staying. And likewise, John, I'm glad to have working with you. We always chatted a lot. I remember, I like chatting with you. So here we are again.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, a lot of what we ended up doing was the pass through soccer games. Where we were taking
That's
the
true.
field.
That's true.
We
Uh,
would do all the prep for the pre-show, and then the game would start, and then we'd have like 45 minutes to just kind of like stand and stretch and talk
yeah,
about
I
what's going
know.
on.
And I love that though when you have a chance to talk because you don't always.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we do games with a clock. Obviously, it's running.
Hmm.
So when I have to focus on the clock and really pay super attention, that's different. I don't mind that either. It
Right.
makes the time go by faster, but it is nice when you're like, okay, 45 minutes to catch up with my coworkers.
Right. It's always nice to have a show where you're not having to be highly focused the whole time, but I also enjoy a lot of my work is highly focused work when I'm in there.
Yeah.
So,
And what I do is graphic arts for
mhm.
live TV shows, mainly sporting events. And I worked on different type of machines. I'm working currently on a Viz. So I guess it's called a Viz operator. And it's been a great part-time gig for me for a long time. And I really enjoy it. It's not my passion, but that's okay. I love going in there and it's great extra money and I love my coworker and stuff. But like you said, I do a lot of other things as well.
Yeah, it's one of the things is you bring a lot of like really good positive energy even to like that role when you're in there doing that.
Oh, I don't know if that's, I appreciate that. I try, but I have my moments too. I
I
think,
mean, I've watched you have a real good patience with people when they're not able to communicate what they want. And
oh, good.
that's always
Yeah.
a hard thing.
I think that's one of the things when you work in live TV, though, that, in the heat of the moment, there can be someone who said, what happened? And they kind of yell at you or whatever. But then afterwards, you just kind of like, yeah, I'm sorry, of course it was, you kind of know that it's in the heat of the moment. Um, so, I mean, that's part of it. But no, live TV it makes it exciting, I think, because you really have to be on, kind of like as a performer, you know what I mean? So maybe that's why I lasted this long and why I like it. I still like it after all these years.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the things that I've noticed is like those heat of the moment things happen a lot, and it's something that like I've been trying to talk about a little bit more is like how I'm shifting things from like when I first started like directing a little bit more. I was talking to my dad about it, and he was like, "Oh, you got to tell people what to do. You got to say, you there, do this, you there, do that." And I'm like, it's more about me setting everybody up to succeed than it is me really telling everybody, "Well, you do this, you do that." It's me saying, "Hey, beforehand, having a meeting beforehand and saying these are the like, these are the graphics that we're going to use. How are they going? How do they work for you? What isn't working for you? That sort of thing is the sort of thing that I would be doing at this point. And then when,
Yeah.
as we approach it, I'm like, hey, do you have this thing ready? You know, and usually the person does. It usually doesn't even have to, usually it's even in the preview monitor for me. So I don't even have to say anything. But that's the sort of person that you are. You're the sort of person that I would trust to have your graphic in the preview monitor or even like to do live
Uh-huh.
reveals. I wouldn't have a problem like making my
Well,
keyboard work with
likewise,
you.
likewise.
You know.
I feel like you, as the in master control, you also keep an eye out for me because sometimes I might have the wrong graphic up, and you actually look at the monitor and say, "Hey, can you, clear that graphic?" Or
Right.
so it really is teamwork. If you're going to have a clean show, it really, really is teamwork and prep as much as you can and help each other out. But uh, no, it's definitely a dance. And another thing about what you mentioned when you direct, I think that's so true that you setting people up to succeed, you prepare as much as you can and pre-pro, bring in stuff before maybe so you don't have to do it live. So you can redo it, if you don't like the way it turned out. But um, I think you still though have to, as a director, um, be able to kind of like say what you want in the heat of the moment. And that I find tricky sometimes because everybody say different things for the same things. The verbiage is not always the same. So yeah, that takes a little time to sort of get used to. And it's good if when you work in one place that they kind of say the same things. Like, when they say maybe and make CG1 hot or whatever. We
Right.
joke about that a lot. It's funny, some of the some of the terms.
Hmm.
Hot, but then I'm supposed to bring in the graphic. So some people say fly the viz or bring in the graphic, or sometimes they just say make CG1 hot, and then
Right.
they think I'm going to bring it in. So those things too. It takes a little while sometimes where you get used to how people say things.
Oh yeah, and that's like one of the things that I have like the extra experience of um having heard people say things the wrong way so many times.
Yeah, and I
That,
don't even know if sometimes if it is necessarily wrong. It's just they do it, they come from a different place and they used
or
to say,
they miss like one of
yeah.
the names or
I mean,
something
people
like that.
still use Chiron. That's like bring in the Chiron.
Hmm.
Haven't worked on a Chiron. That's a different type of machine. Uh,
Right.
if there are some of the viewers that don't know, but like I work on a Viz, and I'm a Viz operator, and it's a specific piece of equipment. And but they still say bring Chiron, and it's technically not wrong, but because I think it became Chiron because we were using a Chiron for so long,
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
That
So
was that was one of the first bigger ones that was out there for graphics.
yeah.
Mhm. I played with one of those for a little while at one point in time. But yeah, it's just something as simple as just knowing when those beats are and things like that. Like one of the TDs at one point in time said, the thing about working with John is at least whenever he makes a mistake, he knows he made a mistake and he's at least willing to admit it and move forward and you know.
Yeah, that actually is another interesting thing, I think, because
Mhm.
sometimes if there is a mistake on air, sometimes it's kind of like it's not one particular person. Like, yeah, maybe that person is most at fault, but like someone else could have checked the spelling, maybe for in my case, or like so it's there. It's sort of a community too, but it is important that you can fess up when it's like, yeah, my bad, because sometimes they yell at the tape person or something, and you kind of know, no, actually, I was the one, So I'm
Yeah,
glad you
that's
brought that
yeah,
up.
that also is one of those things too that like the more prepped you are, the more that you have the experience. Like for me, when a mistake like that happens, I tend to know where it came from.
Yes, and
And
also
that
learning from your mistake. I
yeah.
I think it's okay. We are human. We make mistakes. But I
Mhm.
think as long as you learn from them and you don't keep doing the same mistake, then
Right.
people understand and are, okay.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I don't like in a lot of like job descriptions that I see and things like that. They want somebody who's working on like they call it like a an error-free production or a perfect production, and I'm just like those things don't really exist. because every production that I've been in pretty much has always had something come up where we have to like make a shift, and
And
everybody has to make
also,
that shift.
yeah, but I think also you have to remember people sitting at home, something that we know, they don't even notice, you know.
Right.
Obviously, it can be the opposite too, where it's the very, you know, obvious. You go to black, you will notice that. But I also, I mean, I'm sure you felt the same. Sometimes when you have done something that it was part of your fault, you know, and you go home and you just beat yourself up and you're like, I can't believe I did that. I mean, I can feel bad for a long time because you're like, oh, I could have, should have, would have. And then you just also have to remember that we're not doing brain surgery. It's live TV. No one dies if there's a mistake. You know, no
Right.
one's put things in perspective, which is not, I don't know how you feel,
Well, that's
but can
part of
you
the
beat
reason why
yourself
I'm doing
up?
this podcast is to talk about some of those things a little bit more, because it is one of the things that happens is like the moment that you're done with a live show, everybody just kind of like scatters. We're
Yeah.
done. There's no like, review afterwards or anything. Maybe the next time you come in, somebody might be like, "Hey, what happened with that thing from 2 days ago?"
Yeah.
That you also beat yourself up over for the whole night beforehand.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, okay, this is what happened and this is what I'm going to do. But
Yeah. And sometimes people drop it too. And
Mhm.
like you beat yourself up, but nobody else is thinking about it, you know?
Right. And that's,
So
yeah.
I guess yeah, being a freelancer and doing this line of work, it's great. But there's definitely things you have to learn to deal with, you know, working with different personalities. It's not always the same people. Um, and learning to let go and learning to learn from your mistakes and yeah, all those things. And there's always new people coming in and not being sort of threatened by that. It's a, you know, we always need new people. Sometime I was new, and you remember the people who sort of you could feel didn't really want you there because like you're taking their job or something. But yeah, that's I guess when you freelance. It's also certain things that you deal with. And I know we've spoken about this before. It's great you work a lot when you work a lot, but you kind of think, oh my gosh, I need some time off. I haven't slept. I've been in, you know, obviously in sports, live sporting events, we take a lot of games from Europe and they're on a different time. So sometimes it's really early morning calls and stuff. And you're like, I need a day off. And then you have a day off. And then you can't enjoy it because you're thinking, oh, when am I working? Why am I not on the schedule? So learning to also enjoy those days that you actually have off and trust that, hey, they're going to call me again. I don't know how you feel about that, but
Oh yeah, it's a hard shift, and it's one of those things that I was looking around at other people who are doing the job and going, okay, they're doing a whole lot of work. And like at one point in time, I was sitting there trying to like make multiple places work at the same time. And I was also trying to like really show up for those places. And I was doing 24-hour shifts in a day. And it'd be go to one place in the morning, go to another place in the afternoon, and then go to another place for an overnight shift.
yeah, that's not good for you
It
or
really
the
isn't.
work.
Yeah, and it was clear because it's like, 2 days of recovery afterwards. And I'm like, yeah, I can't really do this. And then even all the effort that I was putting in to do it, they're not really seeing it because it's spread between three different companies. And like something that we mentioned before the show started was um, whoever's doing the scheduling doesn't really know what you're doing. They don't
No,
really take into
no.
consideration your ability or anything. It's more that you can fill the time that they need somebody in the spot as an operator.
Yeah, of course, they want to finish their job as soon as they can, fill the spots. So sometimes it's just, you know, they might text, you know, is anyone available for this? And it's kind of like luck of the draw who got the text first or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So definitely, um, definitely. I understand exactly what you're talking about. But this for me has been a great job on so many levels, but also it's given me the opportunity to work on some of the other things that I'm passionate about and that I've been pursuing since I came here from Sweden.
Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah.
When did you come here from Sweden?
I came here in the 90s.
You don't have
And
to give it a year if you don't want
yeah,
to
yeah.
say
Well,
about
I
like
am an actress, so we don't want to be
yeah.
super specific, but I came in the earlier part of the 90s, but I had just finished like a dance school, a professional 3-year dance program, the Ballet Academy in Sweden. And most people who had finished wanted to go to New York. It's like dancers Mecca for modern
Mhm.
and all kinds of dance. And I didn't really know what I was going to do, but there were two Norwegian girls from my class who were like, we go into LA and we have this apartment, can stay for free, and we want to try to do music videos. And I was more interested in maybe more, not necessarily modern, but like jazz. And it was called jazz at my time. And I wanted to learn hip hop because that was kind of, hasn't completely come to Sweden yet. But I got some scholarships to go and study abroad, and the sad part was that one of the girls had spent all her money, and the other girl had wanted to go on a diet before she left. So I ended up going myself because I my mom had as a present for me to finish. Sorry for having finished the school. She bought me the tickets to go. And yeah, so I ended up going myself. And I had booked a job. I was going to dance in Greece at some club I had auditioned for and got after 6 months. But I ended up never going to Greece because I met interesting people in the circus variety world, and I ended up meeting my husband. And I got into performing as a circus variety performer. Which my dance helped a lot. And I still worked as a dancer, but I found out pretty quick that if you have a special skill, dancers usually get paid the least and work the hardest. Because you can't work on your personality alone. Not to say that you can in all other performances, but some you can. And that, like, you have to take your daily ballet bar and you have to train, and keep sharp. So that's kind of how I ended up staying here. And then slowly being here, I kind of, I would audition for commercials for my dance and special skills like still walking and juggling. And I do a lot of other little trick jump roping. My husband and I had a jump rope show that we toured with called the Rebel Ropers.
Mhm.
Sounds so silly now because we're not rebels at all. Sitting here in my little home with two kids and the dog, and but yeah, that was a great time where we toured a lot and worked with a lot of different circus variety performers, um, and then I started working in production as sort of a part-time gig between other jobs. And the good thing is that I could kind of leave and then come back and,
Right.
uh, luckily the work was still there. And so, yeah, it's been interesting. And I slowly started studying as an actor because I always been interested in acting. I acted as a kid, put up on my own place and stuff, but I never thought about pursuing it necessarily, but being here. And I ended up booking commercials and then like little movies and things. And here I am today with still a very full life. It didn't turn out the way maybe I had envisioned it, but definitely better in many ways and more interesting. And I wouldn't really change a thing. Um,
Yeah, and there's lots of things in what you've just were talking about that are really like important to me, and like what I'm wanting to talk about on the podcast is like, you and your husband both work in the same field, so that's,
Hmm.
that's an interesting thing. It's kind of one of those things where that you've met doing it is also an interesting way about of that because there's a lot of people I know who are like fathers will bring their sons in, and
Oh, for sure.
husbands will bring their wives in and things like that. And I
In
know.
this case, it was the wife bringing the husband in because
Hmm.
I remember doing Chiron and
Right.
just doing those scoring updates,
Hmm.
a squeeze back at the bottom of the screen, just doing score updates. And I remember them saying at the place where we worked that they needed Spanish speaking ADs. And I was like, my husband speaks Spanish. And, it was probably easier at that time to teach someone, to be an AD than learning them to speak Spanish. And yeah, and he has had a great career since then and moved up and now is directing for sports, still ADs as well. But that kind of position is going away a little bit, AD. Now sometimes you have to direct and AD. You know that how
Oh, yeah.
obviously it's a constant changing business where you need to save money because I mean with the streaming and I mean you
Mhm.
know how the business has changed and I see it in all of my different fields that I work in. I mean they're kind of under a big umbrella because there are in entertainment, but you have to kind of be able to move around the rocks as things change. And I don't know how you feel, but it can be a little tricky sometimes when things change drastically and all of a sudden you come into a job and, you know, it works completely different and they want you to do a lot more than maybe you did before.
Oh,
Or
yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's a constant situation for me is like I'm constantly like directing and TDing at the same time, or
Yeah.
and then maybe even doing graphics at the same time, or maybe even doing audio. And at one of the places I was doing all of those things plus a little bit of replay all at the same time with routing and making sure the records are going and. But it's one of those things that like I've worked with your husband. He's a great AD. He's a really good guy. And one of the things that I can say is I love having an AD on a show because it
Hmm.
makes it so smooth.
Oh, of course. Of course.
But so many shows just choose not to do it because it's an easy position to cut because they don't see why necessarily they're there. But it's just one of those, it's a thing that I've said before is um, the more that you cut back on the funding, the lesser show that you end up doing.
Absolutely. But I think too, I tried to look at their side too, I guess, that sometimes they do have to cut somewhere.
Of course.
They're not getting as much revenue from sponsors and stuff. And I know too, I'm sure you feel this, you feel bad like doing the job of your friends, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because they can cut those positions because you're doing it now. Before, maybe they had seven people in a control room, and then all of a sudden they can do it with two. So of course they will. Yeah, it's not going to be as good of a show, and there probably will be more mistakes. But what are you going to do? You don't want to say no to the job, and then you also have to just sort of trust that there's enough work go around. And I mean, I don't even know. Like I have my own little company now called CaliStilts Entertainment, where we do a lot of stilt walking mainly, but I also bring in other circus performers. I'm kind of I guess you would call it entertainment producer, but I also am one of the performers. And I remember after COVID and kind of coming back from that, my daughter was actually the one who said, Mom, I want to walk more on stilts because it was a good income for her when she was in college. So I started making costumes so we could match because there was a lot of individual stilt walkers, but not a lot of matching in Los Angeles. I know
Mhm.
it sounds crazy because if you're not in that world, it sounds like, are there a lot of stilt walkers? Yes, there are. It didn't used to be when I got started, but now there are some wonderful performers and such. But when the work went down there for me in production and doing graphics, I had an opportunity to push more of that, and that has ended up being a great thing for my whole family since my son walks on stilts now too, and walks on a ball and other
Mhm.
fun things. So yeah, it's a great thing we can do together. Um, so sometimes I guess you have to make is it lemonade out of lemons? You know, you end
Right.
up maybe pursuing things that you've been putting off, writing that script or writing or whatever it is.
Mhm.
And like, okay, I'm going to focus on this for a little while. And that has been a great extra income as well. And plus we love it, I love it feeds my heart when I get to perform and be in front of usually little kids and see their little smiley faces. You may not be changing the world, but you're putting some smiles on people's faces, and I think that's important too, making the world a little bit better.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the things that I've been saying a little bit more is like I do a lot of sports production because that's where the funding is and that's where the money is. But
Hmm.
then whenever I get the opportunity to do something else, I pretty much jump at the opportunity because I'm so excited to be doing something that's maybe even a little bit more towards something that I specifically like, but also just something that's different, something that, makes me grow and stretch and learn in different ways.
Yeah. And that's a good attitude too, because I always get a little nervous if I'm working at a new place.
Hmm.
That comes with everything I do. You feel a little insecure when you first don't know people and stuff, but um, it's finding that balance too of having humility where you can sort of say, I'm learning, this maybe I don't know. But also, you don't want to come in like you're not confident in what you do, obviously, because then people will feel that and not trusting. So that's also a little balance. I don't know how you feel, but coming into a new
Yeah.
place.
It's something I've been thinking about a lot too is like they really are putting forward confidence as a big thing, but I'm also like you have to have that experience to back up that confidence,
Yes.
It's kind of one of those things because like I see a lot of younger kids walking in and being really confident and like I remember being like on a film set at one point in time, and this guy walked up to the group of people who were there, and we were all weren't getting paid. We were just helping out with some independent film thing. And he was like, "Hey, we have this truck full of equipment. We need to move it from here to this other place across town." He's like, "Who knows how to drive a truck like this?" And then he was like, he followed it up with right away with, "And don't just tell me that because you're wanting to like show off that you're confident. Just let me know that you actually can do it." You know, and I think one person was able to do it out of everybody who was there. But it was still one of those things where I'm like, yeah, because he said, oh, I would have been that kid who would have said, oh, I can drive the truck, even if he couldn't have. And that's the sort of thing where, I'm running into that a lot where I see people who are like, oh, I can direct a show or I can shoot camera or I can do whatever. And then you give them the opportunity and then they make a mistake. But it's always one of those things where you're like, well, let's build them up. Let's not like knock them down for trying. Let's,
Yeah.
you know,
And that is the tricky thing because I think at some point it's going to be your first time doing something,
absolutely.
So and I think a lot of those I've learned now. I wish I had known that a lot, when I was younger. Because like the people who always seemed to be so confident and they just, came in like they own the place. Like now that we all feel like imposters somewhere. That a lot of times the people who seem the most confident aren't. You kind of have to put that on that air to make you feel self feel better or whatnot. So. Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of a, balance, but I can now being older sort of appreciate that too.
Mhm.
And I think you learn from working with all type of people and trying to get along with all types of people because some people you just naturally like we became friends right away.
Yeah.
Some people you just sort of connect with, right? And some other people you don't necessarily. But you have to, you know, it's kind of like you have family members you may not want to talk politics with
Right.
at the dinner table because you know maybe you don't agree, but you make it work, you know, you just which it's to say to be completely honest, that's not always my strength because I like voicing my opinion and sometimes I don't have that little person in my head who says maybe you shouldn't say this. So I can be very vocal sometimes and kind of regret it. Like I wish I could take it back. But I'm trying. I'm not doing it to be hurtful or on purpose, you know, saying something to hurt someone. Um, but then if you do, whether you mean it or not, you know, you have to learn to say, hey, that wasn't cool. Sorry about that. Or, you know, I don't, um, which is not easy sometimes. Um,
Yeah, it's especially like we've talked about the heat of the show or something, you're like right in the middle of something and somebody says something and you're just like, oh geez, that again or whatever. Yeah.
yeah.
But I have literally watched you have like the most patience with somebody of an opposing political view of yours. Like
Oh, yeah.
you
Yeah.
I literally saw you one day, like for the entire day, just sit there and go, so why do you feel that way? Why do you think that way? What's your thought process? And then just kind of talk to them and be open and be very much just
Oh,
a
good. I'm glad to hear
human
that.
being to that person. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, you don't see that about yourself sometimes because
No, and
you're in it and you're probably sitting there going, oh my God, I can't believe this guy. But at the same time,
but I guess
you weren't
when
actually putting that out there. So
oh, that's really good. Thank you for saying that because I feel I can regret sometimes like maybe I shouldn't have said that, but I also feel coming from Sweden where
mhm.
we have a different system. I mean, it's a westernized country, obviously, you know. So it's not like the culture is that extremely different, but politically, yeah, things are different. So I think I can sometimes compare to what works and what doesn't work for most people, you know. Um, and I think that's kind of the goal in Sweden is like everybody should have a better life. And by that, it's better for all of us. Where sometimes here, maybe people vote more for just one thing, you know, maybe I don't want to pay as much taxes, so I'm voting, but maybe you don't agree with all the other things. So I do genuinely like asking people, like, why do you feel that way? Or how come you
Mhm.
have that opinion? What made you come to that conclusion? 'Cause sometimes I think just people too, kind of vote. It's sort of like something else you shouldn't talk about at work, religion. Like you usually have the religion of your parents, or you know, and even you, you know, if you've grown up with people who are Democrats or vice versa, you
Mhm.
sort of tend to continue that path or think like your parents, I guess, and maybe not stepping outside and thinking for yourself. I hear a lot of, I don't know if that's true, but I heard a lot of women in the United States just vote for what their men vote for, and not really having, you know, finding out them. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of women who vote on their own too, you know, or like take their own path. But, and I just, if that's true, that's a little sad because we all should take that
Oh yeah,
as a big responsibility, you know?
it's it should be. It's one of the things that I've taken the time to actually like start researching every little thing that I'm voting for at this point because it's just it matters to me at this point. So it's take the
Yeah.
time to do the research, and then sometimes my wife will steal my research, and
No, that
but
I think is okay because
she'll also check it.
yeah,
She knows different things that,
yeah.
and occasionally she'll be like, why'd you say this one? And I'll be like, oh, because of this and this. And she's like, well, here's these other bits of information. And I'll be like, oh.
That is
Didn't find
actually
that.
really clever because sometimes you can kind of vote for a prop or something and you think, oh, this sounds good. But then when you find out what the aftermath is,
Yeah, it's
you
like one
didn't
of
really
those.
think far ahead. You think, oh, but this is the right thing. So it's definitely good. And I think that
Mhm.
is where we also should listen to people who are of a different opinion. That's you can actually learn.
Right.
Unfortunately, I don't know. Now it's sort of, you have to be on the left or on the right. I don't feel like you can almost not be in the center or, feel this on one thing and feel this on another. Um, so that is a little sad, I think.
It does make it harder to work in a like collaborative, creative environment
Yeah, sometimes I think it
where you're
does, but
relying on somebody, and then you know something will come up, and then they will you know offend half the people in the room with something that somebody says, or you know whatever, and then you just have to sit there and you have to figure out, well, where's that line of
yeah.
you know
I guess that's where I like when you have worked with people for a long time.
Mhm.
Of course, you shouldn't offend anyone, but if you don't know people, sometimes they get easily offended. Some people don't. So I like, that we can joke around in the control room too.
Right.
But obviously, you want to keep it, on a friendly level or whatnot. But um, I have been in situations, not me personally, but when someone has complained to HR for someone calling them like honey, and he was
Mhm.
from the South and he just called everybody honey. And I just thought that I would take it up with the person first. It doesn't bother me if someone say, honey, because specifically that person is like a grandfather and older and a gentleman. You know what I mean? I would take it up with that person first, um, instead of going maybe to HR. But that's why HR are there. So I'm not saying they shouldn't have, but I
Right.
think that if I disagree with someone, I try to take it up in person first. Um, I
Yeah.
don't know if you've been, again, no one has gone to HR, complain about anything I done, but, or at least to my knowledge, but I have had like someone say, hey, I feel so bad, I've obviously offended someone and they didn't even know who he was. So
Right.
um,
And
I don't know
that's,
how you feel about that.
oh, I definitely think it's up to the individual, but I do think like reporting to HR, stuff like that is usually a good way to go. Even if it's definitely like you said, there's a lady that I work with that she calls everybody love. And I know 50% of that from working next to her is she will write on a piece of paper what's their name to me, because she just doesn't remember names. I don't remember names very well either, but she'll write what's their name. And then I will, after I tell her, if I do remember myself, she will then say their name at some point in time, but then she'll just revert right back to calling them love, you know, which
But does anybody complain about that or?
I don't think they do, but I could see somebody
Oh,
complaining about it,
yeah.
especially like what we've talked about how like people are working together who are like boyfriend and girlfriend, and if she called somebody's boyfriend love in front of them and they didn't know her, that would be potentially offensive, or a situation.
Yeah, I guess that for me, like if somebody called my my husband love, be fine with me because
Yeah.
he's lovely. But yeah, I mean, we are in a time where you have to be a little more aware. Um,
Yeah.
but it's a balance that too, because you
Mhm.
want to be able to be joking around and stuff, but you don't want to offend anybody. I mean, not on
Right. But
purpose.
it's kind of one of those things that when I did hit a point where I was like somewhat supervising people, I literally said, okay, I have to like censor myself with some of my jokes. I can't, there's certain jokes I just shouldn't push those limits anymore.
Yeah.
And, you know, It's occasionally there's been a couple of times, especially with some of the more rowdy guys that I work with, where I'll be like, I can't say what I'm thinking. And they're like, oh no, say it. And I'm just like, oh.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have also prefaced things because sometimes something pops up and you're like, that's clever, but it's maybe not
Yeah,
completely PC or whatever, not. Uh, but then you preface it, yeah, exactly. Like, I shouldn't say this. And they're like, then the people want to hear it.
right. And it's also something as simple as like giving people hugs is something that I used to do on a fairly regular basis. And then I started learning that people didn't like it as much. And it wasn't that anybody complained. It was just one of those things where I'm like, okay, now I'm very aware about like even physical touch with people, even though in the nature of our job, sometimes that's part of how I communicate to somebody is because they're too busy looking at three different things, doing something else, and I'll just put a finger on or a hand on their shoulder. Just
Yeah,
just
yeah,
and it's not anything more than just, hey, I really have something that's really important that's coming up.
yeah. Oh, that I actually I coming from the dance background, dancers
Mhm.
always hug and it's always like, you might massage each other between shows and stuff because you're so physical, you know.
Right.
So that was hard for me to not do all of a sudden.
Right.
But I do realize that it's not appropriate. I mean, it's not like I hugged people I didn't know. I mean, this would be, you know, people I've met before, obviously, and stuff. But
Right.
yeah, I'm also I'm staying away from hugging everybody. I think women sometimes might be able to get away more with hugging, someone
Mhm.
like women hug women, women hug men, but yeah, you have to be careful. And in acting too now,
Right.
it's a lot more brought up in front. Like, can I touch your shoulder when we're doing this scene?
Mhm.
Before maybe you just did that, you just touched someone, but now you're supposed to ask. And most actors are like, yeah, of course, do what you feel like you need to do, as long as you're not hurting someone or putting them in an uncomfortable position. But yeah, it's definitely, but I think a lot of these things are good, that's happened, that it's made it better for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like even just like the hugging and the necessarily unwanted touching. Like I didn't even occur to me, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't want that pushed upon me,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know.
but I again I feel that sometimes is a little a balance too, because
Hmm.
I mean I think in general you feel when someone gives you a hug if it's because they like, oh, I'm so glad to see you, or if
Right.
they're hugging you for some other reason. I feel most people can sense that, but then
Right.
on the other hand, you don't know what people's background is and all
And
those.
that's like me also having like a theater background. It is literally like the moment you see everybody, you're like, oh, hey, I haven't seen you. And it could have been like a day, but you're still gonna like want to like hugs or something. It's just how it goes.
I actually didn't know that. So, did you study theater?
I was basically like through like high school and college, I basically built sets a lot. And
Oh,
yeah, and then I would also act a little bit here and there. So,
so when you came down to Los Angeles, what was your thought of career?
so I was in Iowa and I basically had to find work, and that's how I ended up in doing television a little bit more. I was planning on going into film. That was sort of the idea. Um, I had picked up nonlinear editing, which was still very new at the time, and I knew of the guy who I had replaced at the job a couple of years before me, had gotten a job in Colorado where they were doing something that was called digitizing, which was you just took the raw footage from the camera and you put it into the machine and you edit, organized it for the editor. And
Um,
um, I knew because I was working with four other editors, no, three other editors at the time. I knew that I was much more organized with my files than any of them had ever been, and even the kid before me, because I saw his work before me. So I was like, oh, this is a sure thing for me. And then technology changed and I had to work. And you just kind of keep working, you just kind of keep going. And it's also one of the interesting thing about technical directors is I've only really met one technical director who said, my goal in life is to be a technical director.
Uh, yeah,
All,
because
all,
a lot of
yeah,
people don't even know exactly what that means, I think.
exactly. And it's one of those things where you're moving up and you're moving up. And like for me, I was doing camera work at one point in time, and then I've done graphics and I've done, a whole bunch of different levels of different things. And it's, well, I want more money. How do I get more money? How do I get more stability? How do I get more creative control? Things like that. And then you find yourself doing things like being a technical director where you can, for me, one of the things that I love is like solving the little puzzles and things that I see. And if I'll see a moment that's happening, like live in front of me that I can build an effect for, then I'll throw it together super fast and then it'll just enhance the show. And those moments really kind of like are the things that I like show up for on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So,
That is actually something I find interesting, how a lot of people who come from somewhere else, and even if you're born and raised in Los Angeles, you have an idea of what you want to do. Um, and then usually it doesn't turn out exactly like you thought, maybe, but it turns out sometimes it's better because you didn't even know that this position existed. And you might try the position that you came out for, and you're like, this is not my cup of tea. Um, and if I can give advice to someone who sort of wants to get into the industry, is try those things that come your way because you never know. But then it's that fine balance too, because I remember working for 6 months. That was stepping in for someone who did graphic when she was away on maternity leave. And that was like the only time I had like a steady job, 9 to 5, uh, since basically I started my career. I had some jobs like during the summer and stuff, but not for, yeah, so that was a long time for 6 months. But I remember meeting a lot of people then who were editors, and they obviously made good money, but they were sitting in a little room, editing all day. And I always like asking people and getting to know people, kind of what's your thing, what's your ultimate goal or whatever. And a lot of people came down to be directors. But then they said, I got a family, and I kind of got stuck here because I have to support them, and this is a good job. And here you have to worry about a health insurance and all those things. So
mhm.
it is a balance, but I was thinking then, when I spoke to one of the editors, I said, "But hey, now with the technology, you can shoot a movie, you can direct a movie on your iPhone." I mean, there's even film festivals now where, they have a specific category for sh things shot on an iPhone, or so. It's keeping your dream alive if you feel like you don't want to still give it up. And I think that's okay to have it more as a hobby, or at least feed that creative side of you. Because it was sad to see some people being kind of bitter that I came down here and I'm making all this money, but I'm not doing what I really want to do. And I understand it because there's been times kind of when I felt that too. But yeah, it's kind of looking at your life, it's not the end goal. It's sort of the way there, and those winding the turns you take and stuff. Later, you realize that that was something you that helped you. I just learned this term, skill stacking. It's like when you have a lot of different skills and you end up you utilize them and sort of create another job. And I feel I do that a lot with CaliStilts Entertainment because I have to choreograph. So my dance background there, choreograph, we do a little dance on stilts or do a little juggling routine where we choreograph to music.
Mhm.
And I like to design, so I have to kind of design costumes, not completely, but I have to sew. That's another skill I learned. We also Sweden, we all learn sewing. The guys have to learn too, and then you have woodwork the next semester, and you literally learn sewing from a pattern. So I was really surprised when I first came to United States, and some people didn't know how to like hem curtains, by hand. They took it to some a seamstress or something. I was like, well, that's you just go like this. But that's another skill that I never thought I'd be using for my career, and I find myself sometimes that's the skill I use the most. Or just changing your own clothes and stuff. But yeah, I like that term, kind of skill stacking. You stack different skills. I may not be the best at this or best at this, and I mean, there's always people who are better than you or younger or prettier, but like trust that with all your skills and everything you have in your toolbox, you are unique, you bring something different to the table, hopefully. Um,
Oh
so
yeah, definitely. And that's like what we were talking about earlier whenever you said, "Oh, well, you're the type of TD that like looks at the graphic before,"
yeah,
because I've done the graphics. I've sat there and I've done it. So I know the importance of having somebody just glance over at what you have coming up beforehand, and it really is one of those things where, like I was doing something, I think maybe a year ago, and they had a full page graphic and they had the wrong headshot of the person on it.
that
And
was good that you caught that because you may
oh
not
yeah,
know what that person actually looks like,
yeah, and that's really what I said there was I was like, fortunately, the mistake you made was on one of the few people I actually know who they are, with their name
Yeah.
and their face, and then that I was able to go, that's not who that is. Let's fix that and we'll come back. And everybody was so happy that I got it, but I was just like, I know that it's as simple as just the wrong number was called up in the box.
Yeah. No, it's those things are easy, and you feel as you're doing graphics specifically sometimes that you almost need a second eye because if you're working on a lot of graphics, uh,
Mhm.
and we work together at a Spanish speaking channel, and I'm fluent in Swedish, and I speak I speak enough Spanish, and I'm studying it continuously. But I joke that I know a lot of soccer Spanish, Tarjeta Maria, uh, Spanish soccer terms or whatever. But yeah, sometimes I actually catch like, oh, there's missing an accent on his name or something because I just happen to remember his name particularly, or but I don't know everyone who plays soccer in the world, obviously, and there's always a new player coming in, and so yeah, it's interesting sometimes people who when you can kind of tell someone. Some people just sort of announce it, oh, you're wrong, and some people are kind of like, if you have time, I mean, if it's live and it's going up now, you might say, no, that's wrong, don't take it or whatever, don't take the graphic.
Right.
But there's some people who are sort of like, hey, that's not the right headshot, letting you know. So,
Right.
and I think if you can, you kind of do that, not to, trumpet to everybody like, oh, a mistake.
Mhm. Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that I like to do the more quiet, you know.
Yeah, I remember that actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember us working together and you were always really generous and
Yeah, because I feel like whenever the yelling starts happening, that's when more mistakes start happening.
oh, for sure.
Yeah, I remember at one point in time, I don't remember if you were in the room at that point in time, but there was one point where I had made a mistake. And it was the sort of mistake that I think about four other people. I think the graphics person could have made it, the playback person could have made it, the AD could have made it, the director could have made that mistake that went on air just for a heartbeat. And I watched everybody in the room freeze up and tense up. And I just literally was like, even over heads, I was like, that was my mistake. I know exactly what I did. It's not going to happen again. And I watched everybody just instantaneously relax. And nobody yelled
Yeah,
at me.
because you're like,
Nobody,
oh, is it my fault?
everybody thought that they did it by mistake. And I was just like, oh no, that was me. I know it
Yeah.
was me. I'm owning it and I'm moving forward. And a lot of one of the problems that we were having at that place, in my opinion, was there was a lot of what happened was the question that, and I'm just like, how do you not know what's happening? You're directing the show. How do you not know, that that source is over here and that's what, and or that we did exactly what you said, and that's why
Yeah.
that mistake happened. We did exactly what the words were that were coming out of your mouth, which
And
is,
sometimes it can be, yeah, people calling things wrong. What we
right.
talked about, people say different things. So,
Hmm.
and but like you said too, I think a lot of times it isn't just one person. It could have been caught by this person, could have, but
Right.
sometimes it is like, yeah, that's your main job. So it's good to sort of say, okay, my bad. And a lot of times, like you say, it goes away then. If you just say, my bad, move on. And
Hmm.
not, for me, it's more letting it go in my head, like, oh, I should have, could have, would have.
Yeah, but it makes it so that you lose focus on what you're dealing with at the time because you're
Yeah,
like,
for
oh man,
sure. Sometimes there's so much going on.
Mhm.
So it is hard to pay attention to everything.
But it's definitely one of those things like what you were talking about skill stacking. It's for me, most of my skills relate back to what we're dealing with because I've been dealing with that universe for such a long time. But there's also like there was a time that I sat down to do a show and I was prepping all of my other stuff, and the producer came in and the producer said, I don't see the cameras. Where are the cameras? And I got up and I walked into the room and I said, oh, they're not there. And she lost her mind. And I went and got the cameras and put them up. And then I walked back
You,
in and I sat and I did the show. And it was like, 5 minutes before the show start when I sat back down. But she was, losing her mind because she had no idea where they were stored, where, how to plug them in, how to like make sure that the color correction was right and everything else. And, I just literally was like, oh, let me go get them.
yeah, yeah. Sometimes it's an easy fix.
Yeah. And then again, it's that small conversation later where I was like, hey, who used these? Just make sure to put at least one of them back. So we have
Yeah.
at least one of the two cameras that we're using. I mean, I don't mind it. I don't mind if, one of them's gone. No big deal. We'll live.
So they
But
should have been already there. It wasn't your job to put them up
yeah, they borrowed them for other things.
for something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is tricky too when you freelance and you don't maybe have a system in place, or if you
Mm,
do, maybe the system have changed a little bit since you work there.
right.
Um, so that definitely happens a lot when you freelance. I feel that something has changed, and you are now supposed to do something that you didn't know, or you can't find something specific because they started using a different folder, or so. And I understand too. It's not easy to keep everybody informed, but that's definitely when you really have to be helpful to other people and hope that they will help you. But it's also the balance though, because sometimes I feel like you might say something to someone like, hey, do you know that we do it this way? And they're like, yeah, I know. And you're like, oh, okay.
Mhm.
Because some people take it like it's a criticism or something when your intention were just to sort of like alert. I'm not sure you know. So that can be a little tiptoeing too, but I feel most people are just like, thanks, thanks for mentioning it. I know, but it's always good to get a little reminder. I
Yeah,
don't know how you feel, but
it's something whenever I was TDing more that I would have to specifically, like I did a lot of horse racing work and whenever, or even soccer work. And when I'm doing these things that are like not traditional American sports and traditional American sports guys come in as a director, and then I'm just like, by the way, this is going to happen next, and this is going to happen next. and then this is going to happen next. And it happens that way every time. And, it's just me, just like, and they would look at me as a freelancer and go, no one ever told me any of this. And I'm like, of course not. Of course they didn't tell
Oh.
you like the basics of your job, that this is what's going to happen because they're just assuming that But like one of the things that I also do, like I don't do the horse racing as much anymore. I haven't been there for about 2 months and I've got another day scheduled. I will absolutely be walking around to everybody going, anything changed? Anything new? And I literally still got burnt by something once after walking around and saying, anything changed? Anything new? And literally we went from 4 commercial breaks an hour to 3 commercial breaks an hour. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
that's good if the rundown you get is correct, so at least then you have a chance to maybe question it like, hey, we used to be four breaks and now it's three. Is this on purpose? Because
yeah. And that's the thing where it's like, I love to have accurate rundowns, but at the same time, I also know that they don't tend to live very long in the land of accuracy. Once they get going. Because once things
yeah,
start
that's a
going,
nice way of putting it.
yeah.
And I've learned now to question things, if I don't feel like it's correct. But then sometimes, people are really, really busy and they don't really want your question. So it's also finding that balance. When do I really need to ask, and how can I maybe figure it out on my own? Um, yeah, no, it's an interesting field, but I feel if you can survive this type of environment where things change, you work different personalities. Sometimes it's heated, sometimes you can joke around and it's relaxed. It makes you a better person. You grow as a person, I feel. And I guess that's what it's all about, right? Like,
Right.
I don't know. That's for me is always I want to
Well,
try
that's the
that.
thing is you always like you and I are very similar in that manner where we're always trying to improve, trying to figure out how to do stuff like even like you saying like knowing when to ask, like that's a skill. And like literally I was talking to a lady and her and I was visiting her city and she was saying, "Oh, I'm training somebody tomorrow." And she's like, "I have to basically tell them when to pay attention and when not to pay attention." And and like it was for graphics and it was literally it's like most of the things that they're saying aren't for you. Here are the things that are and that you really need to pay attention to. And she's like, I really need to drive that home in this trainee that I'm working with because
Hmm.
that's it's necessary. And that's like also the opposite of that is me going, now that I'm in a director's chair, I want to hear everything that anyone says that they're trying to talk to me. And like, even if I'm really in a busy moment, I will still go back and say, what was the thing that you were saying? What was the thing you were mentioning? Because it could be something as simple as a spelling error, or it could be like a major thing where it's like, oh, hey, that player who just walked on the field, he's the biggest thing ever from 30 years ago. And I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I guess when you're in charge, it's different. I don't direct. I mean, I've directed short films that I've written myself, so
Mhm.
directing in that way. But I haven't directed a live TV. So, but I think it's good when you can foster an environment like you said, where you can take opinions from anybody because if it is a better, it's a better way, why not? It's going to make you look better, but you also don't want people just bombarding you either. So I think that can be a tricky balance to walk because I do feel actually just the little experience I had of directing. I remember we had a 2-day shoot and I felt like I tried to be best friends with everyone because that's kind of, I like that. Like, oh yeah, we're having fun. But I did feel like some people didn't quite respect me, maybe what they should. Things didn't happen, it's almost like they question. So I decided that the next day I was going to be a little firmer, but still be open and have a sort of relaxed environment. And it made a difference. So think sometimes people don't do it on purpose, but if you seem really wishy-washy, like you
Right.
not know what you're doing, you make people a little nervous too, I think. Your energy kind
Right.
of,
And it's definitely like the older way of like yelling and saying, this is my show and this is how it's going to be. People are so used to that that when they get something else, they don't really know what to do.
yeah, they don't
And then they
know.
think that person doesn't know what they're doing. So it is a bit of a balance because that's like I said, I'll come back. I'll go back to where I need to go because I will put hearing somebody, I put the show above hearing somebody. I'll make sure that we're not stuck on the wrong camera shot or, or sitting on a graphic too long if they're talking about something. But that's also, still, sadly enough, it's also partially from all the little joking around. I can listen to 30 voices at once, and a lot of people can't.
Yeah, yeah.
But I've
I'm
got
probably one
years.
of them.
Yeah.
I can feel overloaded sometimes when everybody is talking at the same time. But luckily now, when you had headsets on, you can
Hmm.
turn on and off and up and down. Some people talk really low, so if you want to hear them, you can control it a little bit better.
Right.
That is helpful, but that's really a good quality I feel you as a director have if you can, um, you know, obviously know what you're doing so people have faith in you, but also being open, and
Hmm.
being able
It's
to listen to other people's opinion. And
it
I
goes
think,
right back to that confidence and experience thing again. It's just like
oh,
there's
for
a lot of people
sure, for sure.
who absolutely have said, go to camera number two, and it's like you really don't want to go to camera number two. It's in you don't want to do that. And
And
that's
then you go to camera too. No, I'm
yeah.
just kidding.
And that's the sort of thing where, you learn to read them, you learn to know what they want, you learn to be able to say, "Hey, buddy, that's we actually went to camera three. The player's wearing a giant number two on their shirt. I know that's what you meant."
Yeah, yeah.
And and then you just point it out to them so that they don't lose their minds or whatever. But it's something that's very easy to do. And like I said, it's one of the things that has been great about working with you in the control room is you do speak up. You do ask questions about like names or spellings or like even like the word choice in the rundown or something like
Luckily now too, I always now bring my own computer so I can always check things,
that. That's always
That
nice.
has made it easier. I don't have to ask all the, but no, it's good to have people's second opinion, but I do feel like that whole yelling culture, I think that's not accepted as much maybe as it was when I got started. Um, and I do feel like you used to think, like, again, going back to that, where you used to think that the person walking in, like they own the room, is the most confident. The person who can kind of be more relaxed and actually admit, yeah, my bad, sorry, I called that wrong or whatever, they are usually the most confident. You know what I mean? That's actually confidence that kind of comes with time. But I also think it's a personality thing. You are not naturally a yeller. I'm sure you don't do that a lot in your personal life either. You know what I mean? So you definitely bring in your personality, but then you obviously have to learn, like we said, to work with other type of personalities, which make
Yeah.
it
And
interesting.
it's like you said, it's a growing experience. It's like living your life and everything. And, it's
Yeah.
figuring out how to make all these changes happen and work collaboratively with other creative people and at all levels. It's
Yes, and kind of when you have a suggestion, knowing when it's knowing when to push for something because you know that it's going to make it better, but also being willing to, even if you know it's going to make it better, it's not maybe your decision. So then you have to just, okay, yeah, just go ahead and do whatever you prefer. It's that's I guess that's what's interesting with working with in a field that's creative, but it's also very much a business. Um, because sometimes they don't necessarily have to think about how to make it more creative or visually interesting. It's more about getting the sponsor in because that's paying, for all
Mhm.
of us sitting there. So yeah, it's it's definitely an interesting, you know, tightrope sometimes,
Right.
but it's never boring. I have to say
Mm.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, never boring.
So I guess one of the last questions I kind of want to ask is you get to be on both sides of like the camera. And we've talked a lot about your graphics work, but when you're on the other side, how do you feel like your work in the graphics and other aspects of like affect how you behave as an actress or doing
Yeah.
right work?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it depends on kind of what medium you're working in. I used to do a lot of commercials, and that was usually wasn't a lot about your dialogue and stuff. So it's different how you prepare. Um, and right now, what's mainly shooting in Los Angeles here is vertical shorts. So that's a whole new um, field where you have to sort of get used to it, where they shoot vertically. I'm sure a lot of people might know what it is, but a lot of people may not. So basically, it's these soap operas, I would call it, that are little short episodes. You can watch them in one swoop, and kind of becomes a feature. But yeah, those you shoot differently than you shoot if you have a role on a TV show. So it's also, being able to adapt to change. And you know that more than anybody because you've gone through a lot of different equipment and things change, and it's you don't want to be the person who's sort of like, oh, I don't like change. Why is it changing? But sometimes that's how you might feel because it is a lot of new things to learn. But when it comes to acting, I just love telling stories and being expressive, and I feel I'm honored when someone chose me to portray a role that they've written or whatnot. So I definitely come prepared, but also willing to play. So and it's very similar in that sense that depending on who the director is, some directors that just want you to do your thing, let's move on. And it's also about time and money. Um, but I feel lucky that I get to both be in front of the camera and behind the camera. And I feel it helped me, with both. And then being a live performer too, as a circus variety performer, I mean, that has its own little things, you have to work with people, and there I have to be much more of a business person because I own a business, and I have to write contracts, and I have people working for me, performing for me. So I feel like I'm learning a lot, and I keep learning every day. And um, yeah, I still have a lot to learn, but I guess again, I think that's what it's all about, right? Keep learning and keep growing, and um, keep being willing to just try new things. So if I can give advice to anybody who's kind of young, starting out there, is yeah, you're gonna have to work hard, and you're not always gonna do exactly what you thought it was gonna be, but you might be willing to try it out. You can always say later, no, this is not for me. But yeah, I feel very lucky I get to do a lot of different things. And I guess I set it up that way. I shouldn't, I know when I come home to Sweden, everybody say, "Oh, you're so lucky," and then I think, well, yes, it's definitely luck, but I guess that saying, luck is when preparation meets opportunity, right? I kind of set it up that way too. And I've made a lot of mistakes along the way, but not let that define you. And sometimes you learn more from I think almost always you learn more from your mistakes than your successes. Um, and yeah, I don't know if I think a lot of people who choose to be in this field are people who maybe are not greatly suited for the 9 to 5. Some are, and they are 9 to 5 jobs, obviously, in the entertainment field. But I just feel for me, this ever-changing life keeps me interested and keeps me on my toes. And today I got to be on a podcast. I've never been on a podcast before. So, hey, this is fun. Thank you. I really appreciate you thinking of me for this.
Of course.
Yeah,
I
and I'm
appreciate you
glad to
doing it.
see your handsome face. It's been a minute. We haven't worked together for a little bit,
Yeah, it's been a
but
little bit.
here we are yet again, and that's fun too. You get to meet people in the industry because I think people talk a lot about nepo babies today,
Hmm.
and obviously my kids walk on stilts because I do. Um, so I can't really say much about it. But it doesn't mean that if you don't have anybody in the entertainment industry, I mean, I don't. My mom was a nurse, my dad a teacher, my stepdad a farmer, and I'm from a little chicken farm in Sweden, and here I am. Not that I'm like the most successful monetarily or whatever, but I also think as you continue in this business, you change what you look at as success, maybe. Because I feel very lucky to have had a family. I've got 2 kids and a husband that I've been together with for a long time, and also be creative. That's not always the case, Sometimes it's tricky to balance all that. So I think sometimes you like we talked about before, you come here with a dream and you want to do this, and but then maybe you find yourself, hey, maybe you get married and you raise your kids. I mean, that's cool. And maybe you write on the side or whatever. It doesn't always have to be your full-time job either. It doesn't mean that you can't be creative on the side and such.
Yeah, absolutely. This whole podcast is more of a side thing for me at this point. So who
Well,
knows?
hopefully it be more of a middle thing at least.
Something, hopefully, but we'll see. What?
No, but I think this
Mhm.
is great for a lot of people who
Right.
want to work in this field.
Yeah, and I think it's just there's a lot of things that we all have that we want to talk about that's about this industry and about things that work and things that don't. Um, and just kind of trying to bridge that gap a little bit more. But
Yeah.
it's been a pleasure
Well,
having
you're
you
doing
on
it
today.
right now, so thank you.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you have coming up and things that you're excited about and what you're all working on, where people can find you online?
Oh yeah. So Madeleine Falk _LA on Instagram. I use Instagram the most now. And also my company is CaliStilts, like Cali, like California, Stilts, ENT Entertainment. CaliStilts Entertainment, also on Instagram, and Madeleine Falk on Facebook. And I have both CaliStilts and Madeleine Falk on TikTok as well. I'm trying to build that slowly. I'm not one of the younger generation when I'm I should probably post more and I'm trying. But right now I actually have my little company, Cali Stilts, have 2 stilt walkers in 2 different locations every weekend. One is at Pranza Farm, which is in Ventura. And it's a pumpkin patch, and they have rides, and they have a lot of fun stuff. And the stilt performers are there every weekend from now on till end of October. And there's another pumpkin patch in Palmdale where we have 2 other stilt walkers. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's some of my coworkers, but I'm supplying the costumes and all the logistical stuff. And as far as acting, I've been asked to go to China to film some vertical shorts, so we'll see if that happens. I would love to. I've never been to China, so that would be lovely. Um, and I'm also working on a couple of scripts. I have someone contacted me who actually is an Oscar nominated screenwriter. Um, and he's written a script. He's a Swedish man, and he have asked me to play one of the leads in a feature he's trying to get made. But as we all know in this industry, when you're trying to get something made, it's a big process, and sometimes you get close, and then it doesn't happen. And
Mhm.
but I'm enjoying the process because again, it's an opportunity to learn. And then I'm writing a short. I've actually finished written a short that I'm going to try personally to get produced. I usually write things for myself because sometimes um, you feel as a woman over 40 in Hollywood, you kind of have to, sometimes the roles may not be interesting enough. And so I'm trying to sort of think about what would I want to play. But I feel pretty lucky though, because there's always something coming up. And yeah, so that's kind of what I'm working on right now.
Well, it all sounds really great. And
Oh, thank you.
yeah, I really appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you for
And
having me.
yeah, of course, might even have you back again at sometime in the future as well.
Would love it. Love it. Love it. So thank you for asking me, and I'll see you in the control room. How about that?
That sounds great.
Take care, my friend.
All right.